Hi there, wellness entrepreneur. Welcome back. Today, we're talking about the Mill Escape Plan, building your 100K online business while working full time. And what does that mean? It might mean that you're a physical therapist or healthcare provider and a full time job as a salary practitioner. It might mean you're a massage therapist in a Mill clinic doing back to back massages on the hour. It might mean that you're a studio yoga teacher driving all around town getting paid per classes per head, and you'd really like to bring in more private sessions or an online membership. It can be any of those scenarios, or maybe even you do a combination of them. But here's what I know because I've been in each of those scenarios. I've been a massage therapist multiple times in a chiropractor's office that had high volume. And then I worked I don't think Massage Envy was around when I was working as a massage therapist, but a clinic like that for some time where it was high volume and I just saw clients back to back to back. And there wasn't as much care for the labor workers back then. There's a little bit more regulations on breaks and such. But I've been in that position. I've been a physical therapist in a male clinic, treating 5 people at the same time, back to back. It was discouraged to do manual therapy in a closed room, even though someone needed to really regulate their nervous system and calm down. I've been a yoga teacher teaching 10 plus classes a week, driving all around town to studios. So I've been in each of those positions. And I'm here to tell you that owning your own business, it's not perfect. Sometimes we envision that the grass is greener over here, that everything will be rainbows, daisies, and unicorns when you leave your mill job. And I don't want to give you rose colored glasses that when you come over here, it's all going to be perfect and magical because entrepreneurship is hard. And some days is a grind. And you do have to learn skills that push you and you need to self involve. But I'll tell you, the money I make now for the hours that I work is so much better. And I have so much freedom and flexibility to work with people how I see fit. I'm not dedicated by insurance or a boss that is driven by a bottom line. I get to run my business how I want. And so having that combination of more freedom and flexibility, control over my schedule of when I want to go on vacation or what I just want my week to look like, being able to carve out time like this week, my daughter ends school. So I'm blocking off Wednesday early because it's her last day. And here in San Diego, her school does a beach day the last day of school. And I can say, oh, I want to block off that day and take her to her last day of school beach day so she can have some fun. I was going to say in the sun, but right now we're in June gloom. Just have some fun on the beach with her classmates and celebrate before her and I take off for Florida. And I'm able to do both of those because I do have my own business. And I want that for you too. I don't want you to be struggling with back to back clients, feeling exhausted all the time. I remember when I was in my massage clinic mill position, I used to joke with my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, how I worked in a cave. And, I was pretty much quiet all day long because most of my clients wanted relaxation. And so I let them dictate how the conversation was going to flow or no conversation, how it was not going to flow, depending upon what they needed. And most people just wanted to be quiet and relax, which that's what it's for. So sometimes I didn't talk for hours at a time. And then I would come home and I would talk my boyfriend's ear off because I just needed to talk and not be in the cave all day. And then I transitioned to being a physical therapist. And I worked in the mill scenario where, again, I was treating sometimes 5 patients at the same time. I was instructing an aide on how to instruct the patients. I was talking to other staff members. I, of course, was talking to my patients. I was just talking all day long. And I would come home and my jaw would be so sore. And I'm hypermobile. So sometimes my jaw subluxes. So I felt like I couldn't even talk. And so my husband saw, pretty much had whiplash. He told me of, dating me and me having talk his ear off to now him trying to start a conversation and just have me even talk a little bit. So I've been in all these scenarios. And it's easy to feel trapped because you are getting a steady paycheck. Even if you're teaching in the yoga studios, it's not so much a traditional job, but it's still reliable revenue where you can make a few $100s to a few, usually $1,000 to $2,000 off studios a month. I see yoga teachers making close to 2K, but they're teaching a lot of classes a week, or they are able to fill a class and get paid per head pretty well. But it's hard to break past that point just on classes. So what's really keeping you stuck though is this thought that you have to choose between security of your paycheck and freedom. You think you need to quit your job to build your business, or you need endless hours of free time to make it work. And that's just not true. I'm going to show you how in the next 10 to 15 minutes on how you can keep the security of your job, build savings because entrepreneurship, it's true, doesn't have that financial security, but you can create it for yourself. And you can also create safety for yourself in entrepreneurship. And you can build it while working your job. So you do have more security when it is eventually time to leave your job, and you'll know when it is time to leave your job. Because here's what I've learned working with dozens of practitioners who've made this transitions. The ones who succeed don't have more time or energy than you. They just have a different strategy and mindset. And that's what we're going over today. Okay, so let's paint a picture of what your life actually looks like right now and tell me if this hits home. You wake up early or even the day before. Sometimes I would have a pit in my stomach if I looked at the schedule ahead and just saw how many people were on my schedule. I rushed to work and sometimes I would have to negotiate with front office to move patients or clients around. I've had it in both scenarios just to have time to eat a lunch or get a half-hour break in between 90-minute deep tissue massages, or making sure that I had time to pee and grab water, and knowing that I spend the next 8 to 10 hours giving everything I have to help people heal. And I know this is how you feel too, because you really care about the work that you do. You care about the people that you're serving, which, by the way, is very beautiful. It's why you are already an amazing practitioner and why you make a wonderful entrepreneur. But at the same time, if you have a very high volume, it's also why it's exhausting. And then you come home after the back to back to back, squeezing in peeing, squeezing in your own self care to make your human being run. You come home feeling mentally and physically drained. If you're in healthcare, you might even have to catch up on documentation and notes. And now your family wants your attention. You need to make dinner, eat dinner, maybe squeeze in a workout if you're lucky. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you're thinking, well, I should post something if I really want my own business to take off. But you're too tired to be creative. You're too bummed out to write compelling content. So post something generic like stretching is important, or 5 sessions available in July with a stock photo, or you don't post at all. And this goes on for weeks, even months. You'll have a burst of motivation on a weekend and maybe you'll create 5 posts then you'll disappear again for 2 weeks because work got crazy again, or life circumstances happened for your family, so things got crazy there. Meanwhile, you're watching other practitioners online who seem to have it all figured out. They're posting daily, running workshops, signing clients, and you're thinking, how do they have the energy for this? But here's the brutal truth. You're stuck in what I call the productivity paradox. You need that steady paycheck to feel secure. I get it. The health benefits, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The golden handcuffs, as it's sometimes called, the fact that you don't have to worry about finding your own clients. But that same job is literally sucking the life force out of you, and you need to build your escape route. You're trying to build a business with scraps of energy left over from your day job. And friend, scraps don't build empires. But I know you have the ability to make it happen. The real problem isn't that you don't have the time or energy, because I know you heard this before, and I'm not saying this from a shaming or judgment place. It's just realizing that the people that do build with the job have the same amount of time as you. The problem is that you might not be using the right strategy for someone who has, working a job about 40 hours a week and trying to build a business in maybe 5. So here's what I discovered when I was in your exact situation. You need that right strategy to shift the reality. So we'll call it the bridge strategy, and it's specifically designed for practitioners who need to systematically, while employed, build their online business without burning out. So most business advice tells you to post daily, to be everywhere, to hustle harder. And it just doesn't work if you are caring for people all day long, because you do need time to care for yourself out. So this bridge strategy to go from being tired and burnout in your mill situation to growing your online business, it's based upon 3 pillars. So I'll give you an overview first, and then we'll break it down. The first pillar is energy-based marketing. The second pillar is credential leverage system. And then the third is the 90-day runway. Now, you can change this runway to however much time you want, if it's 3 months, 6 months, or maybe even a year. It's not about quitting your job tomorrow. Even though you might feel like your job is slowly killing you, you can still plan. Otherwise, what happens is if you don't do this strategically, I've also had many practitioners urgently reaching out to me to hire me because they need to make money fast in their business because they quit their job and they didn't create that runway. And now they're hustling, hustling, hustling. And now their business has become their 9 to 5 and they're handcuffed in certain ways there because they just didn't plan. So I'm going to help you plan so you can leave the golden handcuffs and come into your own new golden freedom as an entrepreneur. So the first one, energy-based marketing. Instead of forcing yourself to create content when you're exhausted, what you want to do is strategically batch your marketing during high energy windows and use systems to maintain consistency. Okay, let's talk about what that means. So that's picking a day of the week or maybe even a day of the month. If that helps you, I have a client that we were working on helping her to create more blogs because she wants her website. She loves to write and she wants her website to be ranking better. So we're utilizing a strength and something that she really loves to do in her business. And she was trying to batch a blog about a week, but she has a family and 3 children and she's busy. So after trying it that way, she realized, oh, I think I need to just carve out 1 or 2 days a month, maybe even a quarter, where she maybe goes to a coffee shop or even books a hotel room or an Airbnb and just batches out content for a month or a whole entire quarter. So you got to figure out what works for you. Sometimes it is trial and error of saying, okay, I'm going to do an hour of batching for the week or maybe a few hours for a whole entire month. But what you want to do is pick a day where you can do this. You can write 3 educational posts on common issues you saw for patients that week. The nice thing about having a job is that you can really pull from them for content that will help your own business because you're immersed in it. You're boots on the ground. So you're going to know maybe even if your audience is a little bit shifted, maybe you work in, for example, a massage mill where they're doing kind of cookie cutter Swedish or deep tissue type massages, or you're in a general orthopedic clinic and you want to specialize in helping females transition through menopause. So it's a slightly different audience, but you're still going to be submersed in hearing patients or clients talk about their problems every day from their language. So use that. Take notes even in your phone on breaks as you can to write down exactly what they're saying. So that way you can use that to spend, for example, 20 minutes doing 3 educational posts on a specific problem that they have, maybe then, or reels. Then you spend 5 to 10 minutes a day when you're posting, engaging with people online, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram or at networking events. You can go to a networking events once a month. You can plan out essentially your marketing for that month or week. And what I would do is focus on one social media platform and then you can repurpose to others if you want, but it's not needed. So on Instagram, you might have 3 posts, carousels or reels a week, maybe a story or 2 or a week, and then you're going to engage and build your audience. And then maybe you might go to one networking event a month or a quarter, or teach one workshop event or a quarter, and you're going to follow up and communicate with those people. And maybe you're going to start, I would get in the practice of sending emails, building your email list and growing it and starting to engage with those people. If you focused on those 3 things in that weekly hour or monthly few hours, then you will consistently grow your audience. You will get better at creating content for Instagram, for example. You'll get better at writing emails. You'll get better at teaching workshops so that when you finally leave your job, you will know how to grow your audience, both through events and communicating one-to-one. And also you'll learn how to convert it. And these are needed skills as an entrepreneur. So the sooner you can start that now, working it in a sustainable way into your schedule, the better you'll get at it. Now, what it does not mean is taking your whole entire Sunday, if you have a busy work week, and doing this, because then you're going to go into Monday feeling even more burnout and tired. So you need to make sure that if you are, for example, doing it on a Sunday, it's 1 or 2 hours, but you also have time to be with your family. You have time to take care of the things that you need to do, like laundry and groceries. You also have time to rest, but you could make it work an hour or 2 on a Sunday, especially if you're planning ahead and maybe doing 2 to 3 hours and doing it for a whole entire month, where then week to week, you only have to do engaging a few times a week, 5 to 10 minutes at a time. So the key here is to pay attention to your energy. So don't do this at a time when you will feel completely exhausted. Like trying to squeeze in posting during your lunchtime where you're really needing to eat, or trying to post at the end of your day if you're really feeling exhausted and tired. That's why I said Sunday, because a lot of times you can use Friday evening, Saturday to replenish so you feel more energized to use your creative brain to create the content and then just schedule it out for yourself. So use this based upon your energy levels so you're more productive and creative in less time. Okay, let's talk about the second pillar, the credential leverage system. So you have something that a lot of online practitioners don't have and they would kill for, and that is experience. And you also have a business or a job that's probably paying for you to get more credentials and CEUs. Leverage them, use up your CEU hours and money and get paid to go to these events because you can take, I know for me, I forget the day that it was called, but I could take a day off and get paid for that day. It wasn't sick leave, but it was something else. And I would get paid to go to the whatever certification or training I was going to. Leverage that. So keep building your skills while you're at your job. Even if it feels busy, just make sure you're scheduling the time out to take care of that. Because when you become your own entrepreneur, you're taking a day off in your business to do that or a weekend in your business to do that. So it's your time and you're paying out of it. You're paying from your own business profit to attend it. Now, it is a write off for you. So there's that, but it is a little bit different when you're doing it for yourself versus having a company pay for you to do it. And then you want to use those credentials and certifications in showing your expertise and your authority and even part of your story as an online authority builder. So again, you can use the experience of working with the patient and now tell the story, not their private information, but right now storytelling, your story, your patient's story. It's come back around. It is what's trending on Instagram right now. People are wanting to read about stories in emails. So the more you're working with people, the more stories you're going to have. You can also tell about stories about why you got a certain certification and how it's going to better help people now and in your own business. So for example, patient came in today who had been able to lift their arm above their shoulder height for 6 months. Then using this specific technique that I just learned a couple of weekends ago, combined with targeted strengthening, they had full range of motion in 3 sessions. Here's the exercise sequence I use. So that's a very easy reel. If you had B-roll, you can just do 5 to 10 seconds of you working with someone and that person lifting their arm overhead. You could just be filming yourself if you don't want to film, a patient doesn't want to be recorded, or take an aide or a tech or front office and have them mimic a patient. 5 to 10 seconds video. You could do text overlay. Here's the exercise sequence I used to help my patient lift their arm overhead when they hadn't been able to do it for 6 months. And then you can write it out in the caption. Bam, done. 10, 20 minutes, one reel. Now you only got 2 more to go and you got a whole week's worth of content. And then you can just repeat that story. I wouldn't reshare the reel in your stories unless you really want it to take off, but you do want to bring in some new creative sequencing to your Instagram stories, but you can tell the same story just in a slightly different way or format. Just have static pictures instead of video, for example. But now you've created expert level content that a generic health coach without your experience or certifications can't replicate. And no shame here, but they went from certification to right to entrepreneurship, and they don't have that same level of experience of having working a job, right? So I'm talking to you who has a job and lots of experience. Utilize it and batch using your energy system so then you can show up as the authority online. So people want to work with you. And you're also teaching your audience how to recognize when they might need this type of intervention. And then you're positioning yourself as the solution, the practitioner they should work with. So here's an example of a weekly rhythm using these patient or client scenarios from your week. Monday, post your Sunday batched educational content that we made before, for example. Wednesday, share a patient success story. Friday, answer a common question you heard that week. The weekend, then you can engage with your community, maybe when you're resting on the couch. Okay, now let's talk about the 90-day runway. So we talked about what to market, maybe some examples of how to market and how to fit it in a sustainable way. But how you actually are going to be able to leave your job is if you're actually signing clients and making revenue. So it's fitting them in when you can. So it might be working longer days, evenings, or weekends, or during your lunch hour. Or it might even be reducing. I remember when I was a full time practitioner, I even reduced some of my hours because I didn't want to be locked in. And now I did the traditional meal and then I switched over to a mentor where I could combine yoga, massage, and physical therapy. And I didn't want to be locked into 8 patients a day, 5 days a week, 40 hours of patient care. So I made a modified schedule because I didn't have benefits anyways. So I worked anywhere from like 28 to 32 hours a week, but just having those extra hours gave me flexibility. That's when I started building my Instagram following. Now, I didn't have a plan at that time to become an entrepreneur. I was just really doing Instagram as a hobby, but you can think outside the box if you really want security and safety of income, but maybe you can reduce your hours. I have many clients who drop down to part time or modified part time where they still get some of the benefits of golden handcuffs. It's not as scary to go from being full time working for someone else to now full time in your own business. You can think creatively outside the box with per diem hours, shifts. So you can create time and you can figure this out for yourself. If you saw 3 to 5 clients a week, let's work this out with the math. Let's say you were charging 150 a session, right? 150 times, we'll go in the middle ground, 4 clients a week. That's $600 a week times four. That's $2,400 a month. So, would that change things for you if you're able to do that consistently, right? So, we're looking at 5 to 10 hours a week outside your job with the marketing time, growing your audience time, learning how to sell, and then actually working with the clients. You could be bringing in maybe 2 to 3K additional beyond your salary. And then when you're thinking of your plan, it's knowing how much you want to have in your savings before you leave your job and what do you want your consistent on average monthly revenue to be before you leave your job. So then you can start planning and using those as markers. And it might seem far off, right? I have a client, she wants to build to almost 6 figures in savings and then be hitting 5 figure months consistently before she leaves her job because she has some great benefits and she's high on the pay scale and things like that. And she's been working methodically. Now, it is hard. She does work a lot some weeks, but she's motivated to make it work. And she has grown tremendously in her business. I have another client. Now she's hit 5 figure months several times, and she's working towards making that consistent. And she has built a lot of savings, and both of those will help create more financial security and safety when she goes off on her own. And she will make it happen. And I have another client. Her runway wasn't quite as long. She was working in an office, and she was learning how to build yoga therapy in this, for example, chiropractic office. And she was learning the skills of entrepreneurship there. And she didn't have a plan to go off on her own at that time, but she was learning the necessary skills to be an entrepreneur and how to bring in clients and sign them. And she was starting to grow her audience when things changed in her job and her chiropractor decided he wanted his model to change and how she was an employee in his business to change. And essentially, what happened is she ended up going off on her own, not in a planned way, but because she was learning the skills of an entrepreneurship, she was able to make it happen. And she started hitting 5K months in her own business pretty quickly because she had to make it happen because she had to provide for herself and her partner at the time. And she also did her due diligence to look for jobs. She's also a nurse. So some of them weren't related to nursing or yoga therapy because she didn't want to put herself back into a burnout nursing situation. But she did find some jobs to help supplement the revenues, such as nannying, which gave her more freedom in her schedule. When I became an entrepreneur, I didn't have a runway either. I was let go of my job and I had very little savings. This is why I always preach about savings. It's the one thing I wish I had planned better, but because I was coming back from maternity leave, I had used my savings for maternity leave. So when I was let go of, I just at the time didn't want to put myself back in another mill position. I just knew that my body and nervous system, especially with a baby, I wanted to focus on time with her and being a mom. I didn't want to be stuck in a clinic and not have control over my schedule. So I hustled to make it work. And then I did make it work. But if I could do it better and easier, I would have had more savings. So I could have had a runway. So if you're having your job right now, planning and creating this runway for you to systematically build the skills needed for entrepreneurship, such as marketing, growing your audience, learning how to sign clients, learning how to get results in the way that you envision working with clients. If you are confident in yourself that you know how to sign clients, that you know how to make money, that you know how to grow an audience, it gives you so much security for when you finally do leave your job. Plus, if you have savings and you know that, oh, okay, I'm making, around 5 to 6K. Sometimes there's always off months or there's really big months, but on average, I'm hitting 5 to 6K revenue months. I can make this work. It also gives you so much more security. So that way you don't have a lot of pressure. And I use this analogy a lot is you're not forcing your business to learn how to walk or force it to walk when it's still a baby and it doesn't have the strength or the motor skills or the neural development to stand even yet. So we want to grow with the speed that our business grows, and everyone grows differently depending upon the skills that you bring to entrepreneurship. Okay, let's wrap it up today. So, first, stop trying to build your business on scraps of energy. It's not working. You need to build a sustainable schedule. And yes, it's not going to be quite the same as when you have freedom of working in your business full time. But here's the truth, even when you work in your business full time, you still have to learn how to work in pockets of time because you'll have more marketing to do. You'll have more networking events and workshops. You're going to have more clients being working with. So the better that you know how to market and develop these skills on short little bits of time, the better and more efficient you're going to be as an entrepreneur. So don't wait or think that the grass is greener where you're going to have all this time when you're off on your own. Start to do it now. Second, pick one of the strategies that I shared today and commit to trying it for the next couple weeks. Don't do everything, just pick one and be consistent. Then layer in the next one and layer in the next one. Just as you're going to layer building in your savings, you're going to layer increasing your monthly revenue. And if you're ready to build the complete bridge strategy system, then the exact step-by-step process, my client working her job got her to 5-figure months, or my other client learned how to hit 5K revenue months, brand new yoga therapist and brand new off her own, then I invite you to book a consult with me. I'll look at your specific situation, identify the fastest path to creating more revenue in the shortest amount of time so you can keep your job and all the benefits and you can grow at a sustainable pace and then leave when you do feel somewhat secure. Because the truth is, it's still going to be scary. It still requires a leap of faith, but you can set yourself up in the best way possible. Because that mill clinic, it doesn't have to be your forever. You don't have to be there forever. You have the skills that people desperately need, and there's a whole world of clients waiting for exactly what you want to offer and bring to the world the way that you vision it. So it's time to build your bridge to freedom. So I'll see you on a consultation call or in the next episode. Alrighty, bye for now.